a little red gouache. So what I like to do is, everybody say primary. What I like to do is when I set out a new palette for a new design, the best thing to do is just red, yellow, blue, black, and white. However, there are colors, secondary and tertiary colors that sometimes you might feel you're better off buying a little bit of orange, a little bit of green, a little bit of violet. But that's not the only option. Okay, so very quickly, because I know I just did something that was unrelated to what I'm about to do, not that the audience knows, not that the viewer knows. Okay, so we're just doing studies. That's how I work. I do, and I would recommend that that's how you work in your own way. If you're into visual art, that is, whatever you do. For instance, if you're into music, the way you warm up is you do scales. If you're into visual art, the way you warm up is you just have to just draw. You'll get criticism. Art is worse than music for criticism. You'll get people saying, "Why do you bother? You're just doing the same thing over and over." Well, you say that to a musician. The only thing is that a musician, they might do their scales over and over. However, when you do your art over and over, you got to do something with all that artwork. You got to either sell it or, so it's got to be something constructive, because ultimately, art just for its own sake. Now, I used to have a teacher, Clive was his name, and he used to say, "Art for art's sake." And, but I don't think he knew what the hell he was talking about, because art has to be for society's sake. Okay, we're setting out that new design, and I'm going to get some of my classmates. Some of them are powerful and successful now in art. It's certainly not going to make me any friends to tell the truth that way, that I feel it's the truth. And I used to say that when we were in high school, and they hated me then. But the fact is, and I'm not saying, I had a great teacher after this. I don't think Clyde was a great teacher, but I did have a great teacher who told me of the value of Andy Warhol. And I was like, oh, I don't want to hear this. That's all I ever heard from Clyde in School of the Arts in Winston. And he said, no, Warhol had something very important to say. And so then I realized that is the case. And I still don't, in the same breath, that same teacher said, yes, Warhol had something very wonderful and important to say visually and with regards to creativity in society, and he helped a lot of people. That's something you don't hear about. You hear criticism, oh, he was this, he was that, but actually he helped a lot of people. As a matter of fact, he was so nice that he helped people that ended up, they were a little bit nuts or a lot nuts, which is why that crazy woman shot Andy Warhol because he was trying to help her, and then she started thinking like she deserved more help than he was able to give. Okay, so Warhol we love, but that teacher that told me of the joys and the value and the importance of Warhol also said in the same breath the importance of Norman Rockwell. And I said, what do you mean? Rockwell's an illustrator. Warhol is, you can't even categorize Warhol. It's kind of expressionist. I mean, he supersedes category. But Rockwell, you could categorize. He's an illustrator, and that's all he is, and that's all he ever will be. And the teacher said, no. He knew what he was supposed to do in this world as an artist, or as a person, really, and he chose to just follow that path because he knew that was his path, and that was the value of Rockwell, and that he spoke of Americana at a time when that was Americana. So now we're talking about Warhol and Rockwell, and then we're going to have to in the next segment, we're going to have to talk about Motherwell and Twombly, which the only thing I'm going to say about that is that I prefer Gerhard Richter, and I would recommend looking it up. Gerhard Richter, R-I-C-H-T-E-R, Gerhard, first name. Anyway, I mean, you have to look it up because, and the last thing I'll say in this segment, and this is in terms of just art history, art appreciation, art value, is that Picasso, just look it up, when he was a little kid, 15 years old, he was doing incredibly Caravaggio-worthy, Tintoretto-worthy, incredibly figurative work at the age of 15, which he chose not to follow through on the figurative art his whole life. But that it's important, I feel, to look up the stuff that's, I think it's called Science and Nature, something in nature, science, medicine, and nature, something like that. It's probably his piece de résistance for the figurative when he was a kid. When he soon after that, he said, "Well, that's it. I'm going to start drawing like a child until I learn how to draw like a child. I'm not going to bother trying to draw like an adult." Paraphrase, but it was something to that effect when he was asked about that. July 2nd, Art Appreciation 2025.